For 3 long years, I've been drowning in scrap metal and metal cutoffs from fabrication projects that I've made, and I'm sick of it. Those pieces are valuable, and I want to keep them because you can use them for future projects, but how to organize them? Well, thus far, my organizational method was to just throw them into a pile. And the pile, I swear the pile moves around overnight when I'm not in here. It anticipates where I'm going to need to be the next day when I'm working in the shop, and it relocates itself so that it's directly underfoot and in my way. And it also reorganizes itself every night so that the piece that I need, which was on top previously, has migrated to the bottom.
Get out of here, you!
This had to stop. I had to come up with some more efficient way of working. It's ridiculous, so much time wasted. So I thought I'd make a video on the subject because I know I'm not the only one that deals with this kind of nonsense. We've got a railroad tracks near our house, and my youngest son and I used to take excursions out there because, he liked to look at the trains, and truth be told, I like to look at trains too. And I actually found that to be a good source of a lot of scrap material that I used to practice on and sometimes even use for projects, and this is one of them. I have no idea what this used to be, but the square pieces needed to come off, and I could spend my life grinding them off, or I could wash them off with the oxyacetylene torch here and then grind off the remainder. So that's what I did. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I got this piece of material from the railroad tracks, and I'm not sure if it's hardened steel or not, so I don't dare try to cut it with my metal chop saw. The good news is whatever marks are left from the cutting rig, I can sand down with my Jer Schmidt sander here, grinder sander. This is the chop saw, the metal chop saw that I was alluding to. Here I'm cutting approximately a 7 or 8 degree angle on all 4 of these pieces. These are the railroad track pieces all cleaned up, and I'm just marking out the locations for the main support angled pieces. I cut a piece of hardened steel one time that I got from the railroad tracks with my chop saw, and I had to buy a new blade, so I'm a little cautious, a little gun shy. Whenever I'm joining 2 pieces of metal in a butt joint configuration, I like to grind a bevel on one or both of those pieces because it creates a much stronger bond because you're introducing more metal into the joint. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking a butt joint and making it a groove weld, which is a far stronger joint than just a butt joint. I refuse to admit the amount of times that I pulled the trigger and nothing happened, and then I realized I forgot to attach the ground clamp. It's never happened to me before. I mean, I've heard other people talking about it. Must be really embarrassing for them. Here I'm taking that void that I created by grinding a bevel on the edge, and I'm filling it with new metal, so it's a much stronger joint than it otherwise would have been. One of the amazing advantages of working at a shipyard, other than the fact that you get all kinds of welding experience and you get to do cool stuff like working on ships or building aircraft carriers or whatever, is that you have access to a lot of excess material that they don't need anymore. These angle bars were sitting there in the yard probably for years, and I happened to see them one day and ask permission. Yes, I did ask permission. Haters. Kate, Mike, you know who you are. You can buy some really great tools that are for holding pieces while you tack them. Those are great when you need a level of exactitude that you can't duplicate with any other means. In this case, I don't need that kind of exactitude, so I place the pieces, I line up the marks, and then I put one tack on there. And at that point, I can lift up my shield, I can use measuring tools to make sure that it's in the place that it's supposed to be before I weld it out. If it's not in place, it's only one tack, so I have a pretty good amount of leeway that I can bend it and reposition it until I'm ready to weld it out. These are my little cap pieces. I cut them a little oversized so that I can weld them out and grind them smooth later. Here I'm cutting the pieces that will make up the rectangle frames for the shelves. I was very pleased to find out that the measurements that I take here are all pretty much exactly the same. So no real side-to-side movement on those angle bar pieces. Take that, Fireball tool, you designer and purveyor of obscenely expensive positioning tools. I'm just kidding. I love those tools. I just don't have any. Doing a fit up on a concrete surface is probably not the ideal. Concrete is not quite as flat a surface as, oh, I don't know, $12,000 Fireball tool workbenches. Why are you hating on Fireball all the time? I'm not. I love Fireball. Basically just jealous of people that have one. If you must know. That would suck if somebody gave me a free Fireball workbench. The two middle pieces sit about 3/16 inch proud of the rest of the rectangle. And that way the galvanized sheet that makes up the actual surface of the shelf can sit within that frame and be supported by those two middle pieces. Here I'm refining the surface of the shelves. I'm grinding the welds out. And if you play your cards right, it ends up looking like one piece, which is pretty cool. And I do this with all three shelves. I thought I recorded a video of welding the casters on, but I guess I'm an idiot. Guess I forgot to hit the record button. Anyway, regarding casters, I always debate whether to weld them on or bolt them on, because casters do go bad, and removing a caster that's fully welded out is more of a job than simply unscrewing bolts and nuts. But it's a lot of work to drill holes and do all that. One of the magical things about welding is that you can just slap some metal on there, and now you've got a permanent attachment. It's pretty crazy. The power of the sun at your fingertips. I'm taking measurements here of the width and length of these rectangles, these frames, because they're not exactly square, mainly because of my layout methods and incompetence, and also because I haven't been given a free Fireball workbench. So even though the frames are not perfectly square, I still want that galvanized sheet to fit in there nicely, and there not to be any gaps. What is it with this guy and Fireball tools? I decided to use galvanized steel as the actual surface of the shelves because a bunch of metal is going to be sitting on there, and if I just had a thin sheet of regular carbon steel as the surface and then I painted it, that paint would be worn away in approximately 17 seconds. And I feel like in my shop, rust has already got the upper hand, so I don't need to add to my troubles there. The amount of times just during the course of this project that I about killed myself tripping over that giant mountain of metal behind me. It'll be so great to get this thing done and that metal off the floor and out of my way forever, hopefully. This is the exciting phase of a project when it actually starts to look like something instead of just a bunch of components. These shelves also provide a structural element, so every time you add a shelf, you're adding more and more support and making this whole thing stronger, which is good because I'm pretty sure there's going to be 500 pounds of metal on this thing when all is said and done. Here I'm about to weld out the base. I held off welding these initially because 3 tacks are a whole lot easier to remove if you encounter some calamity later on, some example of duncery or tomfoolery that's generally guaranteed to occur in every project. I mean, not my projects, your projects probably, or other people's, not mine obviously. I'm just speaking in generalities. But just in case, I wanted to make sure that I could easily remove those tacks and reposition the supports as needed. So here I'm welding them out finally in position, and I thought I might include a couple arc shots, just for good measure. I wanted this cart to have the ability to hold longer pieces as well. Cut-offs that are too long to sit on the shelves. I'm going to use more of that galvanized sheet to close off that opening. And I'm just going to fit that piece of cardboard in the opening and then trace that onto the piece of galvanized steel. Here I am using scissors to cut cardboard because I'm an idiot. Apparently they don't make utility knives in my area of the country. Oh look, there's one. I wanted to extend out that base area for the longer metal pieces to sit on. And I had these pieces that I've had for a couple years now. I got them from one of the local metal supermarkets. And they were in the cutoff section, which is a discounted section. And apparently they had drilled holes in these pieces for a customer. This customer needed hundreds of these metal pieces with holes precisely drilled, but the holes were slightly like a millimeter off, and so they had to basically throw those things away or sell them for a song and a dance. I think they were $1 a piece, and I bought 55 or 60 of them and used them in several projects. I cut some pieces to serve as brackets that will support the cutoffs that I'm going to store in the sides on either side of the cart. I'm using various grinding tools, air and electric, to smooth surfaces, refine edges, that sort of thing. I don't like spatter left on a project, so I spend time with a burr bit, with a carbide-tipped burr bit on a die grinder, getting rid of that. And, any dirt, smoke from the welding process will interfere with paint, so I get that off, and then I smooth over any rough edges. I like to smooth them out, just like I do with woodworking. And it just has this finished look about it that I find very appealing. Yes, I know it's just shop furniture, but it only takes a little extra effort to go first class. The galvanized steel won't rust, but the tacks that are holding it in place will rust. So I needed to paint those tacks, but I didn't want some weird transition between painted tacks and non-painted galvanized. And I also didn't want to paint the galvanized steel because within a very short time, the metal that's sitting on there would destroy that surface. And then you'd see shiny metal poking out from underneath. So I used painter's tape, which is an amazing substance. It goes on, stays on, but it also comes off easy without leaving a residue. And then because of the straight edge of the painter's tape, you've got a sharp transition between painted and not painted. The best thing about this project is it only takes about 15 minutes to make. None of those shots that you saw in the video were sped up. That's just how fast I work. Okay, just kidding. It probably took about 6 days, 4 hours a day, spread out over about 2 weeks. I work full time at the shipyard as a welder, and I got little ones running around. So I can't be in here every day, but I'd say 20 hours, 24 hours. which is not bad considering that it's vastly improved my workflow. So I appreciate you watching the video, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you've got some other idea, I'd be very happy to hear about it, and I hope this helps you in your workflow. Now go build something super cool. To share my solution with you, and I'm going to pick my nose here because I'm not recording a video or anything.
Just gonna stay like this with all these.
Get in the recording. That's fine. Yeah, just not recording at all.
Oh.